Alright, what's going on, guys? I wanted to talk about a new announcement that Anki actually made today, or maybe I won't get this video up till tomorrow. Same day of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Direct, so most of my time and effort was spent there, and that's where most of my hype remains, but, Anki does some pretty cool stuff. So if you don't know what Anki is, it's basically a consumer robotics company, and I really like them because they do a lot of pretty innovative type things. Have you ever heard of Anki Drive or Anki Overdrive, where you've got little robotic cars racing around a track? Then you had Cozmo, which was a little robot that did stuff. If you don't know what Anki is, I recommend you look them up right now because they're pretty darn cool and they're doing some pretty cool stuff. But they've finally announced a third product today, and that is, well, it's technically fourth product, that is Vector. And right off the bat, you look at him and he looks exactly like Cosmo, except he's black instead of white. Except there is actually a collector's edition version of Cosmo that's black, so in that regard, it looks exactly like Cosmo. And I think that's causing a lot of confusion for people. Caused confusion for me at first because I was thinking Cosmo 2.0. No, these Cosmo and Vector are two entirely different things, which is why I kind of wish that they went for their own unique look with Vector and made him, unique, because he literally looks exactly like Cosmo despite being a completely different thing. I guess they just thought that what they come up with Cosmo, it was really great and it really worked. It was able to do a lot of things. It was kind of cute. It's a really nice design, so I can see why they wanted to carry that over to Vector. Easiest way I could differentiate between the old Cosmo and the new Vector, which will be sold side by side. Cosmo is basically a more playful robot. It just wants to play a lot of games and always be constantly interacting with you, and so more for like kind of kids-ish. Of course, adults can have Cosmo too, but And then Vector is more just kind of always there, robotic companion, as opposed to actually playing and interacting all the time. So I'd say in that regard, while as Cosmo is more for kids, Vector will be more for adults. But, those can go back and forth. Like, I'm sure a lot of kids will have fun with Vector, and a lot of adults have fun with Cosmo. I have a Cosmo personally, and I have a lot of fun with him when I do get to hang out with him. But, yeah, Vector is what they're saying now is Vector is a robot companion, and he's always going to be there, which I think is pretty cool. I always like the idea of robots that are supposedly always on, always there, hanging out with you, interacting with you, which is supposedly what this would be. Now, I have heard a lot of companies claiming that that was going to be their product in the past, and it never really 100% worked out that way. It just didn't work for whatever reason, but the concept has always intrigued me, which is why I'm kind of excited here. I trust Anki will come through. There are other companies that would say, we're going to have a fully autonomous robot companion that we're going to make for you, and I wouldn't believe them. But Anki, I believe they always kind of come through on what they're going to say they're going to do, so I trust that this is going to be a pretty awesome robot. I like the fully autonomous. Cosmo, you have to manually turn him on to play with him, and then manually put him back off when you're done hanging out and playing with him. This will be fully autonomous. It'll put itself to bed on its little charger to charge up when it needs to. It'll get up by itself to interact with you and greet you. The other thing about Vector that kind of makes it more autonomous and independent is whereas Cosmo had to be constantly connected to an app, Vector is completely on his own. Cosmo actually didn't have a very powerful microprocessor in him. It relied on your smart device for most of the... That's why you had to have Cosmo connected to your iPad or phone at all time, and that is because Cosmo was relying... All of Cosmo's computing was actually happening in your smart device rather than actually Cosmo's brain. But all the Vector's processing is going to happen in Vector's brain. He has a Qualcomm chip in his brain. And Vector's also got a lot of cool sensors that Cosmo doesn't have. He has a 360 laser vision, or think of it kind of like an infrared sensor. And he's also got special drop sensors. Cosmo had drop sensors, but Cosmo's drop sensors are not quite as advanced as Vector's. He also has a full HD camera, whereas Cosmo's was not quite HD, and a little bit of a crappier camera. And Cosmo also had a single color LCD on his face, but Vector is going to have a multicolor IPS display and also touch sensors. Cozmo did not have touch either. Vector will also be able to connect to the internet, which Cozmo couldn't do. So Vector can do a lot of things that Cozmo can't do, but that does not mean Cozmo is necessarily worse, because Vector, he likes to hang out with you, and he also got microphones. I forgot to mention that. Cozmo did not have built-in microphones. Cozmo relied on you being connected to your smart device to use the microphones in your smart device. Vector has microphones built in, but that's because Vector is supposed to be more autonomous and on his own, whereas Cozmo is always connected and always playing with you. So yeah, basically what I was trying to say before, where I kind of got a little bit sidetracked, was Vector, he'll hang out with you, but he's not going to play games. Cozmo was always ready to play games and do that sort of thing with you, and Vector is not really that kind of robot. So while looking at technical specifications, Vector seems far superior. Not necessarily the case. It's just a different kind of robot. Cozmo is a robotic companion that's ready to interact and play with you, and then he goes away when you're not doing that right at the moment. Vector is always on, always kind of hanging out with you, but he's not necessarily always interacting with you constantly, if you kind of get what I'm saying. It took me a while, because at first I was just thinking, this is basically Cozmo 2.0, but you got to really differentiate. These are two completely different products. The other thing is Cozmo had 3 cubes that he could play with, and it was really cool. That was the coolest part of Cozmo for me, was watching him play with the cubes. Vector does not have those cubes. He has 1. We don't really know what it does, but he's not going to be messing around stacking cubes like Cozmo did. Honestly, the coolest feature of Vector for me, and this is going to sound kind of weird, he can dock himself to go to sleep and charge up. That's one of the coolest features to see on a robot. I really wish Cozmo was ever to do that. Unfortunately, he is not. You have to set him on the charger yourself, but Vector will be able to go charge himself whenever he needs to, which is cool. That's part of the whole autonomous part. So my thoughts on Vector, it seems pretty cool. I wish they had gone with a different form factor than Cozmo, just to do better at differentiating, because a lot of people don't understand that this is an entirely new product and not just a new iteration of Cozmo. But yeah, he looks pretty cool as his own product. I'm still happy with my Cozmo though, but it might be cool to have a Vector at some point, given I have the money to dish out for it. Vector is on Kickstarter now, I believe. It's Kickstarter? I'm not exactly sure. Some crowdfunding website where you can go fund now. They're like over 3/4 of the way to their fundraising goal for Vector, and it's only been a day. It has not even been 24 hours yet, and they're already 3/4 of the way to their goal there, if that tells you how cool this is. So I haven't supported yet because I'm saving my money elsewhere. But if you guys think this looks pretty cool, you may want to go support, and you can get yourself early access to a Vector. And let me know how it is. And yeah, let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts on Vector are. I assume that not many of you have heard of Anki before, so you may want to go to their website again and see they do some pretty darn cool stuff, and I really enjoy them as a company. And I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.